you be all on my line about nothing? Why won't you go get you $1 or something? $1 or something. $1 or something.
Recording live in the Conscious Creative Media Studios from somewhere in the middle of nowhere, North Carolina, you are listening to the world's greatest photography podcast with your host, Bill Howard.
Thank you, Scott. And this is the world's greatest photography podcast, and I am your host, Bill Howard. We can be heard on all the major podcast platforms as well as seen on YouTube. On YouTube, you can find us at Conscious Creative Media, which is CRE8IVE. And then, of course, on all the podcast sites, just look up World's Greatest Photography Podcast. Today, we are with YouTuber, photographer, videographer, stock photographer, and videographer extraordinaire. You can find him on Instagram and Facebook at Lightbenders Visuals, and just search YouTube for our guest, Mr. Brent Hall. Brent, so we finished segment one. We've got some information. We know a little bit about you. On YouTube, as of the time of this show, you had 28,470 subscribers.
Sounds about right.
If I was in the political world, I would say that anything you get beyond this point is all because of me.
Word. It'll be much appreciated.
So, a year from now, if you're at 100,000, 72,000 came from this show.
All right. Sounds good.
Do you consider yourself a YouTuber or a photographer?
I don't know. It's still kind of weird to me. Obviously I definitely consider myself a photographer. But I would say just like within this past year, I've started to contemplate maybe considering myself a YouTuber. And that's really strange, I think. But I think I'm getting there. Someday I'll be a big boy YouTuber, I think.
28,000 is a pretty good sum of subscribers, and I've looked, I've been following you for, there was a collaboration you did with Mike Perea, I think, and that's when I saw the two of you and started following both of you on YouTube. I'm guessing about a year ago or 2 years ago, somewhere in there.
Yeah. That was a long, I think I was lower than 10,000 back then, I think.
Yeah. And did you think you would grow like this?
Yeah, I knew I would. I mean, I'm not one of those people that's like, do what you love and it'll come to you. And I picked YouTube because I wanted it, and I wanted to make it happen. And I do love it, but it's a business and I'm trying to grow it. And I'm doing what I think I need to do to make it grow. I didn't expect that it would grow this fast though. I definitely have grown a little bit faster in the past year and a half or so than I expected. So that's really cool. I'm definitely stoked and I'm really enjoying it.
Do you think there was a certain type of video that you were putting out that really struck a chord with the viewers that made it hit like it did, or did you just get lucky with the YouTube algorithm?
Well, I can tell you, if you look at my channel, there are a few videos that are six-figure videos, 300, 400,000. And I definitely think those videos, every time I get one of those, it's kind of sort of like mini viral videos. There's definitely a step up in the channel. The channel steps up, and then it spikes real big, and then it levels out, but it levels out just a little bit higher than it did before the spike, and I think one of those videos was about probably 5 years ago now when I was living in LA. I did a video about how to do long exposures without filters, so no ND filters, anything like that, and that just took off. Somebody shared it big, or whatever, and that really catapulted my channel for a little bit. And then a couple of years ago when the Note 8 came out, I picked that up for myself just as my daily phone, and I was like, oh man, because the difference between the phones before the Note 8 and the Note 8 in terms of photography and camera capability was pretty big. That was the first time Samsung did the live focus, had dual lenses, all of that stuff, pro mode, and not pro mode, but raw, and there was a lot of stuff, and I picked it up and I'm like, gee, I think as a photographer, I should like review this and piddle with it, you know, and just see what I think and what I could do. And when I started doing those Note 8 videos, like that was my first foray into phone videos, and this channel just skyrocketed. People, you know, and I realized, like, my dad had been telling me that for a long time. My dad is a way bigger YouTuber than I am, coincidentally, in a completely different field. He's a musician, but he's got like 200,000 subs or something, and he was always telling me, like, you know, phones, like everybody's got phones, you need to work on that stuff. And I just was like, man, that's too basic, that's too, like, I don't want to deal with that. But when I started getting these phones and messing with them and doing these videos and seeing the reactions, like, wow. So I just kept doing it, and that's been a blessing and a curse.
Because it's like an actor that gets stuck in a certain role, I would assume.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. So it really helped my channel grow a lot, but it created a dichotomy that wasn't there before, because now I have a lot of people who are coming in who are just phone users. They're not really photographers or interested in like being a photographer, like, you know, like I am, or like a lot of my old viewers were, who watch like my vlogs and regular photography tutorials. These people are just like phone users, and a lot of them, they just don't have that much of a photography background, so it creates a dichotomy. And then it's like trying to find a balance between what I'm gonna post to keep everybody happy, because I thought about making a second channel, but I just didn't want to deal with the hassle of starting from scratch and building it. And to me, it's still like, I would rather have somebody join my channel and follow me and work their way up from a creative level, from a phone all the way into eventually cameras. You know, that's kind of the branching out that I'm looking for. Sorry, it's really windy over here. Like New Mexico just decided to say hello.
Yeah.
Hopefully my mic is doing a good job though. But yeah, that really created the dichotomy for me, and now it's like really hard. Like I got to think like, oh, I haven't done a phone video in a while. I definitely need to post one and keep everybody happy. And oh, I've done a few too many phone videos, so I need to do some DSLR stuff or some actual photo or video, you know, Premiere or something. And it's been challenging, but I still think I've been able to keep everybody, you know, going with some sort of a consistent video type for everybody. So we'll see how it keeps going from here.
Keep up with the cell phone videos, but also make sure you keep doing the holy grails and the time lapses, because you've got to keep the astronomy and the astrophotography side of it up.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite stuff by far. I would never quit doing that. So I got more of that coming for sure.
Have you tried to do any of the adventure vlog type stuff on a consistent scale, or when you were forming your YouTube business, were you thinking, I'm going to do tutorials on everything?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of went into it as a teaching perspective. I've done a lot of teaching in the past with just unrelated, you know, science stuff. I taught chemistry and geology and physics and at college labs and stuff like that for a long time. And then I did teach photography for a while too. So I always I went into it. If you watch my older videos, like 4 or 5 years ago, they're pretty dry. They're pretty like, this dude looks like he's a teacher and not an entertainer type of deal. And so I definitely figured like, the best way to get established back then was through doing tutorials. And because I don't think I started vlogging my actual photography adventures until maybe 3 years ago was probably about the first time I started doing that.
About the same time that Thomas Heaton took off.
Yeah, you know, I've been following Tom since he was at about 8,000 subscribers. I actually just, you know, found him back in the day about 4 or 5 years ago maybe, and he was pretty small, and I loved his style, and I've been following him ever since. And but even then, like, because I found people like him, and I found Brendan's channel when Brendan still had his other channel, and it was like, even when I saw people doing that stuff, I didn't really think that I would do it, because I was still like focusing on the education and the tutorials and building. Because at the time, everybody else that I was watching, even those guys, when I found Brendan, I think he was only at like 6,000 or 8,000 subs too. And but even then, I couldn't fathom like 6,000 or 8,000 subs. So I was at like, you know, 500 or 1,000 subs or something.
Yeah. Now, were you monetized?
Yeah.
when you at the lower numbers before?
Yeah. So I think because I've been on YouTube so long, like I just had a YouTube channel for so long, and I did 6-7 years ago every once in a while upload videos, and this was before the monetization rules that are there today. And they were, when I started uploading videos, and they were just random stuff, but YouTube was like, they emailed me and they're like, hey, like finish setting up your portfolio or your profile or whatever and monetize. And I was like, okay, I didn't really know what that meant, or I was like, but if anything happens in the future, I'll just have it set up. And that was, it was like 2010, 2011, 2012, and I was already monetized. Of course, I wasn't doing nothing with it until, I think the first time I got a check from YouTube or a direct deposit or whatever was maybe 2015. And I got my first $100, and I had already had everything set up, and it just hit, and I was like, whoa, like what just happened? Yeah.
I was one of the victims with YouTube. I was monetized. I've got one video that has over 1 million views.
Oh, right. And you were just
really
under the
crappy.
cusp, huh? When they...
Yeah, and I didn't have enough subs.
Yeah.
I was at 400 subs or so.
Yeah.
So once I made it to the 1,000, I got to my 1,000 subs. I got my 4,000 hours all within the year. But I hadn't logged into AdSense in a year because I wasn't going to get any money.
Oh, yeah.
And so they sent it to Delaware in unclaimed funds.
Oh, jeez.
And so now I'm waiting. I'll get that money eventually. I've been paid from YouTube since, but that money's still sitting there.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
You are listening to the world's greatest photography podcast with your host, Bill Howard.
So we're here today with Brent Hall of Lightbenders Visuals. You can find him on Instagram and Facebook looking up Lightbenders Visuals, and you can find him on YouTube by looking up his name, Brent Hall, or going to Twirling Eagle. As far as the cell phone photography, you're talking about how you got kind of turned into that, and I guess this is an important point. You were saying you were using YouTube as a business, and a lot of people don't realize businesses don't necessarily go by the plan you have. You follow the trail that it takes you.
Yeah, I actually gave a presentation on that
of
today.
What you did. Perfect. Now, did you mention cell phone photography and YouTube channel?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
But it's interesting that some people do it for fun and some people do it for business. I'm monetized. I'm trying to bring in some money off of this. I'm a full-time photographer as well. And I figured, okay, I've got a podcast. I can use this as a YouTube video 3 days a week.
Yep.
I get consistent on my YouTubes. It helps with discoverability.
Absolutely.
Because the algorithms, nobody really knows how the algorithms work.
Yeah.
Well, look, we're finishing up segment 2 here with Brent Hall. And if you're listening on the podcast, stay tuned right after this. If you're on YouTube, you'll catch the 3rd segment on Friday. We'll see you soon. We're with Brent Hall on the world's greatest photography podcast.
Why you be all on my line about nothing? Why won't you go get you $1 or something? Get you $1 or something. Why you be all on my line about nothing? Why won't you go get you $1 or something? Get you $1 or something. Why you be all on my line about nothing? Why won't you go get you $1 or something?